Consorcio Borges.
Hello, I'm Shifa Shukriya, and today we are going to look into the analysis of short story The Big Sister by Consorcio Borges. There are few subtopics that we are going to look into, which are the author background, plot, point of view, and settings, character and characteristics, and the analysis, which includes theme, literary devices, writer's messages, and related issues. Okay, now before we dive further, let's take a look at the summary first so you understand a little bit about the story.
Summary. Big Sister is a short story written by a Filipino author, Consorcio Borges. It is a story of Inchiang, an 18-year-old big sister who always takes care of her younger brother, Itong. Their mom died while giving birth to Itong, while their dad never remarried and spent his time tilling the land for their needs. One day, Itong got a scholarship to pursue his studies in Vigan. The family showed support, love, and care after receiving the news. But Inchiang felt sad because it was her first time of being apart from Itong as he heads to Vigan. A year after, Itong returned to the barrio. He is more eager to see his friends rather than his family. His attitude towards Inchiang changed. The end.
Now, what do you think will happen after that? Well, I guess you have to wait until the plot section to find out. But first, let me introduce the author of this short story.
Author's background. Consorcio Borges was an Ilocano writer born in 1911 in Cervantes, Hocos. He won the 1941 Commonwealth Award for Literature for his collection of 47 short stories, The Automobile Comes to Town. It was serialized in graphic from December 1941 to January 1942. He is also the author of Girl in the Night, 1960, and The Treasure of Besang Pass, 1962. He died on 1981. His book was never published because of World War II, and the manuscript was lost. Plot. Exposition. Inchiang's mother died after giving birth to Itong, her brother. Her father never married again because of his loyalty to the memories of his wife. Instead, he spent his life tilling on their land. At that time, Inchiang, at her early of 6 years old, took up the role of a mother to her brother. She watched Itong growing up and do all the chores for her family. Rising action. As time goes by, Inchiang becomes very attached to her brother. The feeling of Itong for Nena, her playmate, was shared to her. Inchiang doesn't want Itong to keep secrets from her, and seeing Itong getting away from her. Conflict. One day, Itong was granted a scholarship for being the valedictorian in his class. But he had to be away from his family because the school is located at Vigan. Inchiang and her father were supportive, but Inchiang felt emotional for the thought of separating with her brother after taking care of him since he was little. Itong will stay at his Tata Chilin's house at Nakbarshan. When Itong was about to leave, he cried because it was his first time to travel alone. Inchang felt so much pain seeing her brothers teary-eyed as they bid their goodbyes. Climax. From Vigan, Itong wrote a letter once a month to his family, and Inchang will read it loudly to his father and Tata Orin. After years passed, Itong returned to his barrio. He is more eager to see his friends rather than his family. His attitudes toward Inchang changed, and he is now distant to her. Following action. Inchang noticed that everything has changed about him. Aside from physical changes, Itong began to keep secrets from her, and that breaks her heart. He already forgot that his big sister is the only person that will understand him. Resolution. Inchang realized that even though there are a lot of aches in her heart, she can't keep her little brother young forever. She accepts that it is inevitable. Then, Nena came to their life, and she wondered if Nena is someone that could be her younger sister, as she never had one. The end. Point of view and settings.
So this short story uses the third-person point of view. This is because the narrator is not part of the characters. Plus, the characters are addressed as he, she, they. For instance, the story starts with Itong watched his sister fold his old khaki shirt carefully. So that indicates that the story is from the third-person point of view. Meanwhile, the time period is in late 1940s. This is because they write letters to each other and they still use the kerosene lamp. So that indicates the time period. There are two settings mentioned in the story. The first one is Ilocos, which is the town where the family lives. And the other setting is Vigan, where Itong pursues his studies.
Characters. The first character is Inchang, the big sister of Itong. Inchang was the one who raised Itong right after their mother died from giving birth to Itong. So, from there, she became a mother figure to Itong. Inchang was a very hardworking woman. She's the one who cleans the house, cooks for them, and even did the laundry for the supervising principal teacher, Mr. Kablana, so that Itong can have money for his books. Inchang's character started from being rude to Itong, who's going to Vigan to study because she's always wants Itong to be by her side. And then she changed to being excited every time Itong comes home. The next character is Itong. Itong is Inchang's younger brother who have to go to Vigan to pursue his studies. He was timid at first as he was afraid of being away from his sister. But then he grew up and started to change. He started to become secretive to Inchang, especially about his love life story. Next is the father. The name is unknown because the author never mentioned the name. So the father is loyal because he never married again since the death of his wife. He is also hardworking because he working hard at their farmland. And lastly, their father is also supportive because he wants his son to become successful in his studies. Next is Tia Orin. Tia Orin is Inchang and Itong's aunt. She is always supportive towards both of them. There are also additional characters mentioned in the story, which are Nena, Itong's childhood friend and crush, Mr. Kablana, Orin, Lake Iban, Merto, and Tata Chilin.
So for the literary devices, the text in the short story is an easy read as the vocabulary used are simple and easy to understand. While the writing style suits the theme of the story with bittersweet and kind of light-hearted storyline. So there are few words in the story that are not English. For example, Manang, Tia, Tampipi, and more. As the author is from the Philippines, it shows what culture is embedded in the story. It is easy to guess the meaning of those words too. For example, Manang, readers can see the words recurring whenever Itong address Inchang. So we can guess the word means sister, as the title itself is Big Sister. So it pretty much gives it away. The author uses a lot of imagery. For example,
She listened to the sound of his footsteps down the bamboo ladder across the bare earthen front yard. Then she heard him whistle. There were answering whistles running feet. Inchang brushed her satsy hands against her soiled skirt. Itong was with a bunch of his friends under the acacia tree across the dirt road.
next is symbolism. I believe that the symbolism in this story can be seen in the comparison between these two dialogues.
Manang, I have a bag of lipai seeds and marbles tied to the rafter over the shelf for the plates. See that no one takes it away, will ya? Yes. Oh, and Manang, next time you make linubian, don't forget to send Nena sama. You like Nena very much? Yes. And the next passage, he went out with his old cronies, but he had neglected his marbles. The marbles hung from the rafter over the shelf for the plates, gathering soot and dust and cobwebs. It was a reminder of Itong's earlier boyhood, and he did not go out with Nena anymore. Have you forgotten your friend Nena already? Have you been giving her linubian, Manang? He asked, and when she said yes, he looked glad. Once she asked, "What are you writing about, Itong?" And Itong had replied, Nothing, Manang."
The first text is when Itong was about to leave vegan. He was still a boy and he reminded Inchang to look after the big of lipai seeds and marbles. Then he reminded her to send Nena some of the linubian if she makes it. And when Inchang asked him if he likes Nena, he answered it honestly. The second text is when Itong had grown up, and we can see that he neglected his marbles as it has gathered soot and dust. It is as he had forgotten about it, like he didn't care whether Inchang had looked after it or not, despite him being the one who reminded her to do so. However, he did not forget about Nena, as he asked Inchang whether she has been giving the linubian to her. Then, when Inchang asked him what was he writing about, he lied and said nothing, when he actually had no reason to lie. He started being secretive with his sister. The marble symbolizes his childhood, how he is a grown young man now and no longer a little boy, which is why it is forgotten, because it's in the past. Also, it symbolizes Itong's attitude towards Inchang. It's like he has forgotten how important Inchang was to him, because he had asked Inchang to look after the marbles before. The linubian could be the symbol of his love towards Nena, which is unchanging.
Possession, concern, worries. These are all byproducts of affection. You feel unexplainable emotions happening all at once when you have that person whom you consider like a very expensive diamond by your side, or at least under your care.
Big Sister, written by Consorcio Borges, discusses a motherly love of an ate or sister towards her younger brother, leaving for high school education far away from their locality, overcoming her ardency for her brother as to gain a bright future. She let him go with an uneasiness and solicitude, thinking about what would happen to him over the course of time. In the story, the author did not directly state the message of the story, but the message of the lines.
That time would keep him growing for several years yet, and more distant to her. And she knew, despite the ache of her heart, that she could not keep Itong forever young, forever the boy whom she had brought up. Clearly it brought up its message to the readers that change is inevitable as time passes. At the last two lines of the story, a good-looking one like Nena, Yin Chang smiled at Nena, and Nena, blushing, smiled back at her.
We can assume that Inchiang, instead of resenting Itong's attention to Nena and being lonely because of Itong growing, she decided to treat Nena as her little sister, just as what she did to her little brother, Itong. The issue or problem that I have found in this text is just because Itong becomes successful, he is becoming cold to his older sister over time. That made her sister feel like she is becoming irrelevant to him as he grew older. That problem is still present, especially on our society and generation. Most of us tend to forget who raised us, where we came from, and how did we achieve the success we have today. So that's all for today's presentation. Let's end this review with a line from the movie The Little Prince. Growing up is not the problem, forgetting is.